Welcome to the Strength of the Day podcast, which is a daily Bible study with Dennis Fountain. We hope this time together will be challenging, sharpening, uplifting, encouraging, and strengthening to your Christian walk. Thank you for joining us, and we pray you are helped through today's study.
Hey, welcome back to Strength of the Day. Good morning or afternoon or evening. Hope you're doing well. We are continuing our study journey with Jesus. Today we are in Luke chapter number 14, Luke 14. Now, before we dive into the passage, I just want to tell you this morning that often when readers come to passages like Luke 14, we begin to distance ourselves from the characters that are listed within the story. Because in Luke 14, we find Jesus calling out a group of people who are often referred to as the Pharisees. Now, he doesn't directly say, hey, you guys, I'm talking to you, but you can definitely and very quickly catch the fact that Jesus is warning the people about the Pharisees. Now, here's why I say that we distance ourselves from the characters within the story. Oftentimes, we look at a Pharisee being self-righteous and being somebody who desires, we'll see today, they desire to be exalted and respected. They only serve people who can serve them, and they're someone who makes excuses when they get called out for things. We look at a person like that and we say, oh my goodness, I would never, how dare they? I would never do that. But I remember my friend Kurt Skelly said this one time, and it's always stuck with me. Before we condemn the Pharisees, we need to realize that we often are the Pharisee. But we also need to know that there's a little Pharisee within every one of us. All the time, there's a little Pharisee within me. What is the Pharisee? It is me condemning others, but exalting myself. It's the pride of Dennis that says, well, I'm doing okay. I'm not as bad as. It's the comparative side of me. We all have that. And so this morning, knowing that we all can play the part of a Pharisee, let's hear the Lord's warning to us about following the example of a Pharisee, and not following the example of a Pharisee. Luke 14, verse number 1, Now it happened, as he went into the house of one of the rulers of the Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath, that they watched him closely, and behold, there was a certain man before him who had dropsy. It would be a type of edema. And Jesus, answering, spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Remember, he's done this a few times, and they did not like it when Jesus healed on the Sabbath. But it says they kept silent. And he took this man and healed him and let him go. Then he answered them, saying, Which of you, having a donkey or an ox that has fallen into a pit, will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him regarding these things. The Pharisees were ones that often they wanted to be seen as righteous. This is why they would condemn Jesus for working on the Sabbath. And he would say, you Pharisees, you're a bunch of hypocrites, because you would do something to be seen of men, except for when it came on the Sabbath. And then you wouldn't do anything on the Sabbath because, well, we're seen of men as being not sanctified. And here's Jesus helping them understand, like, your heart is the issue. It's not about working on the Sabbath or not working on the Sabbath. It's about your heart. And in this passage, Jesus calls them out. No one could answer him regarding those things. Verse number 7. So he told a parable to those who were invited, and he noted how they chose the best places, saying to them, When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more honorable than you be invited by him. And he who invited you and him come and say to you, Give place to this man, and then you begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down in the lowest place, so that when he who invited you comes, he may say to you, Friend, go up higher. Then you will have glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. You see, the Pharisees were the ones Jesus took note of how when they came in and sat down, they were all trying to vie for the best seats in the house. And Jesus just is saying, man, you guys are a horrible example to these people. When you go into a meal, be humble. Don't be about yourself. Don't be all about you getting the highest seat, because it's a shame when you're in the highest seat and someone says, hey, you got to move lower. There's someone more important than you here. How embarrassing would that be? Hey, Pharisees, you need to realize that humility is way better than pride. All right, now we're going to come back to all of it and tie it together in just a minute. But look with me at verse number 12. Then he also said to him who invited him. So now he turns to the host. And he says, when you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, your brothers, your relatives, nor rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. For you shall be repaid at the resurrection of the just. So now the correction is, hey, when you have a dinner, don't just invite people that are going to invite you back to their dinner. Don't just invite the who's who. Don't just invite the people on the A list. You need to invite everyone. You need to go out in the streets and invite them. Invite the people that can't repay you, because, hey, Pharisees, I know what you guys are doing. You Pharisees, you only serve those or give to those or invest in those who can give back to you. The last story. Verse 15, it's a parable of the great supper. When one of those who sat at the table with him heard these things, he said to him, blessed is he who shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. I'm trying to change the subject. Then Jesus said to him, a certain man gave a great supper and invited many. And he sent his servant at supper time to say to those who were invited, come, for all things are now ready. But they all with one accord began to make excuses. The first said to him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must go and see it. I ask you to have me excused. Another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am going to test them. I ask you to have me excused. And still another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. Sorry, that one always makes me laugh. So that he doesn't even offer more of an excuse. Like, here's what she's telling. He's just like, I married a wife. I can't come. It's funny. Anyway, so that servant came and reported these things to his master. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, go out quickly into the streets and the lanes of the city and bring in here the poor and the maimed and the lame and the blind. And the servant said, Master, it is done as you commanded, and there is still room. Then the master said to the servant, go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper. So, here's Jesus giving this illustration of a master hosting a dinner, inviting everybody. Then the guests who were invited all have excuses as to why they can't come. So he sends a servant into the highways and hedges and compels people to come in, and there's still room. And he's like, listen, go out even further. Invite anybody to come to this meal. And those guys who were first invited, they're not going to partake in this at all. Now, there's a lot that is here. But when you study the context and you know the scenario, we can very quickly derive that Jesus is speaking against the heart of the Pharisees. The Pharisees believed that they were better than everybody else. The Pharisees believed that they were righteous. The Pharisees believed that they were humble. The Pharisees believed that they were servants. And the Pharisees believed that they were super important. And here's what Jesus throws to them. They, as a Pharisee, were completely wrong. God is not interested in how righteous we think we are. God is not interested in how exalted and respected we think we should be. God is not interested in us just serving people who can serve us back. God is not interested in our excuses as to why we can't surrender and follow him today. You see, the Pharisees, they thought they were extremely important, but they'd missed it. You know, in my life, there are plenty of days that I am like the Pharisees, that I have a heart that says, God, aren't you pleased with me and how important I am? God, look at everything I'm doing for you. Yeah, I know you want me to do that or pursue you here, but God, look at everything I am doing. Here's my excuses. I can't do that, but I can do this. And so often I have the pride of a Pharisee. I have the self-righteousness of a Pharisee. I have the servant, the spirit of a Pharisee that says, I'll serve if someone will serve. And when I come to a passage like this, I'm convicted and challenged with this thought: Lord, help me not to be the Pharisee. God, help me not to be the Pharisee. Help me instead to be humble. Help me to serve no matter who it is. Help me to serve even if they could never do anything back. God, help me to be humble. Help me to realize that things do not revolve around me. Lord, help me to be one that doesn't see myself as the person who deserves the highest seat. No, God, would you help me not to have the heart of a Pharisee? I don't know, maybe in your life you've been struggling with that. You've been struggling with a me-first attitude, pride leading you, and a heart that says that you are the most important person in the room. My friend, can I encourage you? Don't do that. Don't have the attitude of a Pharisee. Instead, have the attitude of Jesus. He was the most important person in the room, and yet he humbled himself. He made himself of no reputation. He wasn't consumed with self. He served others regardless of what they could or couldn't do back to him or for him. And so I just want to encourage you, as you and I go through today, let's ask the Lord, Lord, would you help me to have your heart, not the heart of a Pharisee? Help me not to be driven by me first, but Lord, help me to be driven as a servant of the King of Kings. Hope that'd be a help to you. We'll see you tomorrow as we pick up in our study. Have a good day.